Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Please,
Hare Krishna
please
ji.
respectful obeisances unto your feet.
Oh, Glory Krishna Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for coming, for
Hare
giving us
Krishna.
your association.
Hare Krishna. So we can start.
Yes, please, Prabhuji.
Om Jnanatimridasya Jnanan Ganasarakaya Chakshuramalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Pitam Tam Sanjivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Bitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asri Tatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namini Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvese Sasyuyavadi Pasacha Ade Satarini Vancha Kalpa Tarbhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lagayate Grim Yat Kripatamahad Vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakaram Vyapta Yina Characharam Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to today's session. It looks like today may be our last session. We are finishing chapter 23 of the Pretty Unit. And so we'll see how far we can go. So we are treating text chapter 23 of the fourth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Prithu Maharaj goes back to Godhead. But before we do that, I think we need to look at some few verses from the previous chapter, Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumaras. So we went through the whole chapter, but we did not have time to look at a few selected verses. So today we will look at those selected verses. And then before we move on to text chapter 23. So can I share my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji, you are co-host. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So in text 2, it says the four Kumaras were spacemen who could travel in space without machines. So because the four Kumaras, they are Yogeshwaras, they are great yogis, they have so much mystic power. So there was nothing impossible for them to do. Anyone who is fully devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead with all attention, there is nothing impossible for him to do. Kim alabhyam bhagavati prashane sriniketane tatapi tatparara nahi vajanti kinchanaha. That those persons who are dedicated to the service of the Lord and who are able to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is nothing impossible for them to achieve. So besides being great yogis, they were also great devotees of the Lord. We understand that after Lord Brahma had created the 5 principles of ignorance, Tamisra, under Tamisra, Mohan, Mahamohan, and Tamas. That is the 5 layers of ignorance, the 5 coverings of ignorance. Brahma was feeling guilty that he had to do that thankless task of creating these 5 principles of omniscience that would entangle the living entities in the material world. So Brahma thought, let me do something that can counteract these 5 principles of ignorance. And so what did Brahma do? Brahma created the 4 Kumaras. And he empowered them with Sankhya, with Vairagya, with Gyan. So, and then yoga. So the 4 departments of yoga, Vairagya, Sankhya, and there are 4 departments. Sankhya is 1, Vairagya is 1, Gyan is 1, and yoga is 1. So 4 departments were given to the 4 Kumaras by Brahma so that they could help the living entities. They could spread this knowledge to help the living entities overcome the 5 principles of omniscience. So the 4 Kumaras, they have their own sampradaya, Kumara sampradaya, through which they propagate devotional service in order to liberate every conditioned soul in this material world. So besides being yogis, siddhis, they were also great devotees of the Lord. And therefore it is said that anyone who is able to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is nothing impossible to achieve. So the Kumaras, they travel by the airwaves. They don't need any mechanical arrangement. They can, just by thinking of a place, they are already there because they are such great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 4. It says, Prithu Maharaj strictly followed the Vedic injunctions of Shastra. A spiritual master or the Paramacharya should be respected exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Vidyavat is significant in this verse. This means that Prithu Maharaj also strictly followed the injunctions of the Shastra in receiving a spiritual master or Acharya of the Transcendental Discipline Association. Whenever an Acharya is seen, one should immediately bow down before him. Prithu Maharaj did this properly. Therefore, the words used here are Prashayanata Kandaraha. Out of humility, he bowed down before the Kumaras. So, Prithu Maharaj is not an ordinary person. Prithu Maharaj is a Satyavesha avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Adiraja, original great king. Yet, when the Kumaras, saintly Kumaras, appeared before the king, he had to observe the spiritual etiquettes by bowing down before these brahmacharis, exalted brahmacharis. So in this way, Prithu Maharaj is observing the Vedic principle. Tavidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one should render service. One should make submissive inquiries. One should humble himself before the Acharya. So therefore, Prithu Maharaj is demonstrating, is setting an example for the whole world to follow. In text 6, it says the Kumaras declined to engage in procreation in order to increase universal population. Srila Prabhupada writes, in the beginning of the creation, there was a great need of population. Therefore, Lord Brahma was creating one son after another and ordering them to increase. However, when the Kumaras were requested to do so, they declined. They wanted to remain brahmachari throughout life and be engaged fully in devotional service of the Lord. The Kumaras are called Naistika brahmachari, meaning they are never to marry. Because of their refusal to marry, Lord Brahma became so angry that his eyes became reddish from between his eyebrows. As a result, Lord Shiva or Rudra was born. So we can say these are some pastimes between Brahma and his children because there was a need for Rudra to appear. Rudra is in a Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that Rudra is an incarnation, an empowered incarnation of Sadashiva. There it is mentioned that actually Rudra is a jiva. Sadashiva is an expansion of Lord Narayan, Mahavishnu. There's no difference. But Rudra is not on the level of Shiva. Rudra is a jiva which is empowered to destroy the universe. That is the job of Rudra. Rudra destroys. So there was a need for Rudra to be manifested. Rudra had to be born. And the only way it has to be born is that the Kumaras had to disobey Brahma's order. And by disobeying Brahma's order, Brahma became angry. And out of that anger, Rudra was born. Otherwise, even in the first place, there were no wives for the Kumaras. When the Kumaras were created, there were no women to be married. So even Brahma telling them they should procreate, where are their wives? There were no wives. But it's a pastime to facilitate the appearance of Rudra, because Rudra is needed in the universe to cause the universal destruction at the end of the creation. So therefore, that pastime was displayed between Brahma and his 4 Kumara children. So it is said that they are lifetime brahmacharis. Their semen is flowing upwards. And as such, they are becoming more and more advanced spiritually. They are becoming more and more realized spiritually. And as such, they are natural spiritual masters, and they can deliver the whole world. In text 8, it says, when the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas are pleased, Lord Vishnu is pleased. So therefore, the secret of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to please the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, to please the devotees of the Lord. Actually, we cannot please Krishna directly. Krishna is unlimited, and therefore there is no way we can please an unlimited person. Krishna is unlimited. Whatever we do is always very insignificant. But if we can please the devotee, Krishna is pleased. By rendering some little service for the pleasure of the devotees, Krishna becomes pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, then all success will come. So therefore, the secret is to please the devotees of Krishna. So devotional service is about pleasing the devotees of Krishna. In text 10, it says the Vedic way of receiving guests, Atiti Seva. In India, the custom is that even an ordinary person is offered a glass of water if he suddenly visits, and one cannot offer him foodstuffs. If there is no water, then one can offer a sitting place, even if it is on a straw mat. And if one has no straw mat, he can immediately cleanse the ground and ask the guest to sit there. Supposing that a householder cannot even do that, then with folded hands, he can simply receive the guest saying, welcome, welcome. And if he cannot do that, then he should feel very sorry for his poor condition, and he should shed tears and simply offer obeisances with his whole family, wife and children. So Atiti Seva, guest reception, is part of the Vedic culture. Atiti means uninvited guest. In our modern world today, before somebody comes to us, he must call to inform us, I'm coming today, I'm coming tomorrow, at so time. Then we are expecting him or her. In Vedic times, this was not there. A guest would just appear at your gate, and it's the duty of the householder to receive him nicely, offer him such hospitality that he feels happy and satisfied. So here it is said that at least one should offer a glass of water. If you have no foodstuffs to offer to your guests, offer him a glass of water. And if there is no water available, offer him a sitting place. at least on the straw mat. And if one doesn't have a straw mat, he should clean the ground and offer the ground to him. Not what he doesn't need to buy. And if one cannot do that, then he should just fold his hands together and say, Swagatam, we are welcome, you are welcome. But if one cannot do that also, then his situation is very pitiable. He should shed tears and offer obeisances along with his whole family to such a guest. In this way, he can pacify the mind and heart of his august guests. In text 12, it says, appreciating Vaishnavas by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnav Shrestras. Maharaj Prithu specifically appreciated the position of the Kumaras because they maintained the brahmacharya vow from the very beginning of their birth. Maharaj Prithu, however, expressed his great appreciation of Vaishnavism by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnava Shrestras. In other words, everyone should offer respects to a Vaishnava without considering his source of birth. Vaishnava Jati Buddhir. No one should consider a Vaishnava in terms of birth. The Vaishnava is always the best of the Brahmanas, and as such, one should offer all respects to a Vaishnava, not only as a Brahmana, but as the best of the Brahmanas. So Vaishnavas are superior to ordinary Brahmanas because they are servants of Vishnu. They are servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And anyone who qualifies to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his position is very exalted. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead only blesses those who are fully devoted, only blesses those who are fully dedicated, only accept those who have expressed deep love for him. So for one to be described as a Vaishnava, it means he is very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, they must be appreciated. Actually, that is our main business. The best way to make advancement in Krishna consciousness is to constantly appreciate the devotees, appreciate the Vaishnavas. Anyone who is always appreciating the Vaishnavas, he becomes very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, it is said, the more we appreciate people, the more we develop their good qualities. And the more we criticize people, the more we inherit their bad qualities. This is a subtle law that when you glorify someone, you appreciate someone's good qualities, you also share in those good qualities. And when you criticize somebody's bad qualities, then you also share in those bad qualities. Therefore, a devotee should always be eager to glorify the Vaishnavas, to appreciate the Vaishnavas. By appreciating them, one can cultivate their very good habits. In text 14, it says that some realized person progress in spiritual bliss and come to associate with the Supreme Lord. By material association, we lose our spiritual consciousness. Consequently, there is the question of the auspicious inauspiciousness. But those who are Atmarama or self-realized have transcended such questions. The Admaramas or self-realized persons gradually making further progress in spiritual bliss come to the platform of association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the perfection of life. In the beginning, the Kumaras were self-realized impersonalists, but gradually they became attracted to the personal pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So, the more we progress on the path of spiritual life, the more we are getting closer and closer to the Supreme Lord. Actually, it is said that by our daily japa, our daily chanting of Krishna's names, we are actually associating directly with Krishna. Because Krishna's name and Krishna, there is no difference. Binatvam namini namaha. Krishna's name and Krishna himself, there is no difference. They're identical. Krishna Gun, Krishna Nam, Krishna Gun, Krishna Lila, Sarupena, Sarvachit Ananda. That Krishna's name, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's form, they are not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who comes in touch with any of these is understood that he is associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So our daily chanting and our daily hearing is as good as associating with the Supreme Lord. So the more we do that, the more we become purified and the more we come closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So a devotee has to endeavor to keep his daily sadhana going without a stop. And in this way, we can become closer and closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In text 20, it says that the heart of a materialistic person is cleansed of lusty desires by good association of devotees. So association with devotees is so important. Association with sadhus is very important. Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Kripa, Bhakti Vaibhava. The first step in devotional service is to associate. Without association, we can never understand what is devotional service. But as soon as we begin to associate with devotees, then gradually, by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, by the mercy of the devotees, gradually our understanding becomes mature. And gradually we accept the process of devotional service. Gradually we begin to practice. And bit by bit, our consciousness improves. Our material desire decrease. Our contamination becomes purified. So devotee association is very crucial. Therefore, in the next verse, which is 21, it says, without increasing love of Godhead, one cannot achieve the perfectional stage. So we have to constantly increase our love of Godhead. It said, therefore, increased attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is advised in all sastras. That is the only way of detachment from material existence. And is explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.59 as param destra nivartante. One can cease material activities when he actually has the taste for devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended love of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life. Premam pumato mahan. Without increasing love of Godhead, one cannot achieve the perfectional stage. of the transcendental position. So the ultimate goal of Bhakti is to achieve this transcendental position. And this transcendental position can be achieved by incremental efforts. Every day we are increasing our attachment to the Supreme. Every day we are increasing our attachment to hearing about the Lord. Every day we are increasing our attachment to devotional service. These incremental efforts will help us increase our love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is possible when we hear the pure devotees. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of the Supreme Lord. So hearing from the pure devotees of the Lord is also considered service. When we hear them, we are also rendering service to them. And by such service, our spiritual life will be enhanced. Because the pure devotees, they are in touch with the Supreme through the process of bhakti. When we also hear from them, when we also associate with them, we are also associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Via the medium of the pure devotee, we have access to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In 25, the more we hear from realized souls, the more we advance in devotional service. We can increase our propensity for devotional service by hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from realized souls. The more we hear from realized souls, the more we make advancement in devotional life. The more we advance in devotional life, the more we become detached from the material world. The more we become detached from the material world, as advised by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the more we increase in attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee actually wants to make progress in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead. He must lose interest in sense enjoyment and associating with persons who are after money and sense gratification. The material world is a place of sense gratification. And everyone is busy trying to excel. Everyone wants to excel in sense gratification. Everyone wants to be seen as a champion of sense gratification. That is a competition. So a devotee does not associate with such people who are competing for sense gratification. The devotee wants to be detached. The devotee wants to experience transcendental bliss, ananda. So therefore, he doesn't associate with these sense gratifiers. He wants to hear from the advanced devotees. He wants to associate with them. And by so doing, he goes back home, back to Godhead. In 28, it says that when one is devoid of distinctions, there's no longer difference between matter and spirit. So long as one is on the mundane plane, so long as we are on the material platform, we will see differences, we would see distinctions, we would make we would create differences. But as soon as we come to the spiritual platform, we will see the oneness of life. We will see that the super soul is present in everybody. We will understand that consciousness permeates the entire creation. We will begin to see the Lord present in every living being. And so at that time, there is no question of distinction. Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmana Gavi Hastini. That a learned Brahmana, he sees with equal vision. He sees a learned Brahmana, he sees the cow, he sees the elephant, he sees the dog, he sees the dog eater. He sees with equal vision. He does not distinguish. He sees the super soul in all. He sees the Atma in all. He understands everyone belongs to the same supreme personality of Godhead. That is equal vision. So as we progress on the path of Bhakti, we will develop this universal vision, a vision devoid of material distinction. In 31, it says, due to misguided consciousness, one is put into the material atmosphere, one falls down. The soul is said to be lost when there is no proper knowledge exhibited. Our original consciousness is Krishna consciousness because we are part and parcels of Krishna. When this consciousness is misguided, and when one is put into the material atmosphere, which pollutes the original consciousness, one thinks that he is a product of the material elements. So the body is a product of material elements, but the soul is not. Consciousness is not. We are not the body, we are consciousness, we are the soul. But because of misguidance, we are misguided. The whole material education, the whole material culture, the whole material civilization misguides the soul because they are simply promoting the body and promoting sense gratification. And the soul identifies with that and becomes attached to that. So because of this misguidance, the living entity falls down. In 34, it says the Vedic civilization offers knowledge in the Shastra to regulate our lives. That is very important for a human being. Regulation. Srila Prabhupada often says the difference between the human being and that of the animal is that the animals are not regulated. They can sleep at any time, they can wake at any time, they can eat at any time, they can mate at any time. They are not regulated. And that is their life because they are not advanced. But a human being is equipped with great intelligence, and that intelligence is meant to help us regulate our lives so that we can practice sadhana, we can practice bhakti. So the Shastras are meant to guide us. The Shastras are meant to give us direction. It is said that the Lord is so kind that he makes the scriptures available for the living entity's deliverance. Krishna is so kind that he gives us scriptures. Because without scriptures, how can we go home? Without the guidance of scriptures, how can we progress? So it is said, Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, manifest the scriptures just to give us the opportunity to follow the orders, to follow the guidance of the scriptures and return back home, back to Godhead. And that is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is the comment, the verses we wanted to comment on. Now we start with 22. 23, sorry. 23, Pritu Maharaj goes back home, chapter 23. So, we still have about 2 hours plus. So we can, and there are, I think 39 verses. So we should be able to cover it in these 2 hours. So we begin to read, and then I will comment on some verses, not all the verses. If we want to comment on all the verses, we cannot finish today. So I will comment on some verses, but we'll just keep reading the translations and the slides. But at intervals, I will stop. I have some verses I want to comment on. So in this way, we can do it simultaneously as we move ahead. So I'm going to begin with text 1. Text 1, I'm just getting to the end of chapter 22. Twenty-two, 26. All right. So we have Pritu Maharaj goes back home. We have verses 1 to 3. I will chant that, then we go on to the rest of the verses. We just read the translations. So 1 to 3 says, Maitreya Ovacha Drishta Manam Pravayasham Ekadavanya Atmavam Admana Vadita Sesa Swanuk Sharga Prajapatihi Jagatas Tastu Saschapi Vidito Dharma Britsatam Nishpadisher Saradesho Yaratam Iha Jagnivam Adma Jesu Adma Jamnish Nyasha Viraha Rudatim Iva Rajashu Vidmansu Ekaha Sadharo Gatapovanam. Translation. At the last stage of his life, when Maharaj Prithu saw himself getting old, that great soul who was king of the world divided whatever opulence he had accumulated among all kinds of living entities, moving and unmoving. He arranged pensions for everyone according to religious principles, and after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in complete coordination with him, he dedicated his sons unto the earth, which was considered to be his daughter. Then Maharaj Prithu left the presence of his citizens, who were almost lamenting and crying from feeling separation from the king, and went to the forest alone with his wife to perform austerities. So the slide says, once Prithu Maharaj sets the example for others to follow. One should not simply remain at home until the time of death, but should separate from family life at a timely moment and prepare himself to go back to Godhead. As a Shatyavesha incarnation of God, who had actually come from Vaikuntha as a representative of Krishna, Maharaj Prithu was certain to go back to Godhead. Nonetheless, in order to set an example in all ways, he also underwent severe austerities in Tapovan. It appears that in those days, there were many Tapovans or forests, especially meant for retirement and the practice of austerities. Indeed, it was compulsory for everyone to go to Tapovan to fully accept the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for it is very difficult to retire from family life and at the same time remain at home. So Prithu Maharaj is a Satyavesha avatar. He is an empowered incarnation of the Supreme Lord. He descended from Vaikuntha, and therefore his going back to Vaikuntha was certain, it was guaranteed, even without austerities, even without devotional service, because he is Krishna's man. Krishna sent him down to this world, and so he's always thinking about the Supreme Lord. Yet, Prithu Maharaj left his kingdom and went to the forest. So it is said here, he had to set example for the world to follow. In the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th chapter, verse 21, Lord Narasimhadev tells Prahlad Maharaj, Bhavanti Purusha Loke Mad Bhaktas Tvam Anuvrataha Bhava Me Kalo Bhaktanam Sarvesham Pratirupa Drik. Those who follow your example will actually become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotees, and others should follow you in your footsteps. So, Lord Narasimhadev is speaking to Prahlad Maharaj that people will follow him because he's exemplary. So the devotee always leads an exemplary life. Anyone who claims to be a devotee, he is duty bound to lead an exemplary life, because people are going to watch him, people are going to look at him, people are going to follow him. And so if he does not set a good standard then he would misguide people. So Prithu Maharaj, being an example of a pure devotee, he could have stayed at home until the end, and he would have certainly gone back home, back to Godhead, no doubt about it. But Prithu Maharaj thought, if I don't go to the forest and perform some tapasya, some austerities, some rascals will come and they will say, after all, Prithu Maharaj did not go to the forest, so there's no need for me to go to the forest. So therefore, to set an example, Prithu Maharaj went to the forest. So a devotee must always set a very high example. And devotee must always give the best of examples. And that example is the preaching. It says, in distributing Krishna consciousness, there are two ways to preach: prachar and achar. Prachar means our words, and achar means our activities. So we may speak volumes of words, but people will watch our activities. If our behavior, sadachar, is not appropriate, our volumes of words will not influence anybody. And even if we don't speak, but we set good examples, people will follow that. People will follow the good behavior. So therefore, Prithu Maharaj set a very high example for the whole world to follow. And so we thank Prithu Maharaj for that. We can proceed to text 4 and 5. So somebody can read 4. You read this translation, you read the slides.
After retiring from family life, Maharaj Prithu strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. In the Tapovan, Maharaj Prithu sometimes ate the trunks and roots of trees. Sometimes he ate fruit and dried leaves, and for some weeks he drank only water. Finally, he lived simply by breathing air.
Sorry, you're supposed to read the slide for 4.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, read the slide.
Grasta ashram enables one to retire in the middle of life to engage in austerities in order to transcend sense gratification. Agastha ashram is a sort of concession combining sense gratification with a regulative life. It is to be enable one to easily return in the middle of life and engage fully in austerities in order to transcend material sense gratification once and for all. Therefore, in the Vanprastha stage of life, tapasya or austerity is strongly recommended. Maharaj Prithu followed exactly all the rules of Vanprastha life, which is technically known as Vai Khan Nasa Ashram. The word Vai Khan Sa Su Sa Mate is significant because in Vanprastha life, the regulatory principles are also to be strictly followed. In other words, Maharaj Prithu was an ideal character in every sphere of life.
Thank you. Somebody can read text 5.
Translation. In the Tapovan, Maharaj Prithu sometimes ate the trunks and roots of trees, and sometimes he ate fruit and dried leaves. And for some weeks, he drank only water. Finally, he lived simply by breathing air.
Wow.
Slide. Krishna consciousness affords one the opportunity to live in the temple of the Lord, which is as good as the Lord. It is also notable that, according to Vedic injunction, to live in the forest is to live in the mode of complete goodness, whereas to live in the city is to live in the mode of passion, and to live in a brothel or drinking house is to live in the mode of ignorance. However, to live in a temple is to live in Vaikunth, which is transcendental to all the modes of material nature. This Krishna consciousness movement affords one the opportunity to live in the temple of the Lord, which is as good as banquet. Consequently, a Krishna conscious person does not need to go to the forest and artificially try to imitate Maharaj Prithu or the great sages and munis who used to live in the forest. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.23.5.
Thank you, Sarah. Here, it is mentioned that to live in the forest means to live in the mode of goodness. To live in the city means to live in a mode of passion. And to live in a brothel or a drinking house, gambling house, is to live in a mode of ignorance. However, one who lives in the temple is living in Vaikuntha, which is transcendental to the modes of material nature. Why? Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped there. Harihi Nirguna Shakshat, Purusha Prakrite Paraha, Sasarvadrik Upadrasta, Tamba Yam Nirguna Bhavet. That the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always situated in transcendence. Harihi Nirguna Shakshat is always situated in transcendence, far above the three modes of material nature. Purusha Prakrite Paraha. And anyone who worships him also becomes transcendentally situated. Tambajam Nirguna Bhavet. So, worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead at home or worshiping him in a temple, we convert the house, we convert the temple into Vaikuntha because the Lord is being worshipped there constantly. So to live there is even much better than to live in the forest, which is supposed to be in a mode of goodness. So Srila Prabhupada is so kind that he has created these transcendental places for us to live and execute our devotional service. So we are always grateful to His Divine Grace, Laisi Bhaktivedanta Swami, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. So we go to text 6.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Following the principles of forest living and the footsteps of the great sages and munis, Prithu Maharaj accepted 5 kinds of heating processes during the summer season, exposed himself to torrents of rain in the rainy season, and in the winter stood in a water up to his neck. He also used to simply lie down on the floor to sleep. Sitting within a circle of fire with flames blazing from 4 sides and the sun blazing directly overhead. Panchatapaha refers to 5 kinds of heating processes. One is enjoined to sit within a circle of fire with flames blazing from 4 sides and the sun blazing directly overhead. This is one kind of panchatapaha recommended for austerity. Similarly, in the rainy season, one is enjoined to expose himself to torrents of rain, and in winter to sit in cold water up to the neck. As far as bedding is concerned, the ascetic should be content with simply lying on the floor. The purpose for undergoing such severe austerities is to become a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23, Text 6, purport.
So to become a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to undergo all these kinds of austerities, unimaginable austerities. It's just unbelievable. And so we have to appreciate Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the light of these austerities, these severe austerities, we have to appreciate the unlimited mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Tam Karunanavam. The Lord is so merciful. The Lord is so compassionate that he descended into this world in Kali Yuga. Kalo api asti gudeyam bhakti yena prakashitam. That the Lord is so kind, the Lord is so compassionate, the Lord is so merciful that he descended to this earth planet in the age of Kali to give us a very sublime process, a process that does not require all of these austerities that Prithu Maharaj had to undergo in the forest. So we have to appreciate Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have to appreciate him. And the only way to appreciate him is to accept the holy name, chant it very seriously, and give it to others. That is a sign of appreciation. He ordered that his holy name should be heard in every town and village. And for us to show our appreciation, we have to execute this order. So we don't have to perform these austerities. We don't have to go to the forest. We just stay at home and just make sure we engage in the 5 activities Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names of Krishna, worshiping the deity of the Lord, staying where the Lord is being worshipped, and associating with devotees. These 5 activities, Mahaprabhu said, is the cream de la creme. Creme de la creme. If we perform these 5 activities, guaranteed, our spiritual success will happen. So let us take advantage of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and make some advancement in Krishna consciousness. Text 7.
Can I read?
Maharaj,
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Maharaj Prithu underwent all these severe austerities in order to control his words and his senses, to refrain from discharging his semen, and to control the life air within his body. All this he had for the satisfaction of Krishna. He had no other purpose. The slide. Maharaj Prithu underwent severe types of austerity for the express purpose of worshipping Krishna. Significant in this verse are the words Ariradhyasu Krishnam Archat Tapa Uttamam. Maharaj Prithu underwent severe types of austerity for the express purpose of worshipping Krishna. Krishna is so kind, especially in this age, that he appears in transcendental vibration of his holy name. As is said in the Narad Pancharatri, Aradito Yadi Haris Tapasa Tatah Kim. If Krishna is worshipped, if he is the goal of advancement, there is no need for one to execute severe types of tapasya, because one has already reached his destination. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:23-7.
Thank you. Text 8.
by thus practicing several austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control, he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. Fruitive,
Slide.
fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. The minds of those who are addicted to fruitive activity are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. As long as one continues to be subject to polluted desires, he has to accept one material body after another. So-called yogis, without knowledge of the real purpose of yoga, practice it in order to keep the body fit. Thus, they engage themselves in fruitive activities, and thus they are bound by a desire to accept another body. They are not aware that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna. From
Thank you. So, fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. That is the natural inclination of the souls in the material world to engage in fruitive activities. Actually, we are repeatedly giving material bodies just because of the desire for fruitive action. The conditioned souls, the Nitya Baddhas, this is not the first time we have been manifested in the material creation. We have gone through this cycle a number of times. But the desire for fruitive results is so strong in the heart of the living entity that is almost impossible for a living entity to give up fruitive action. That is our disease. Everything we do, we expect some results from it. But until we come to the platform of rendering service without any motivation, when we come to the platform of acting only for the pleasure of Krishna, then one can become free from these fruitive inclinations. So we have to dovetail our desires in the service of the Lord. That is the beauty of devotional service. The beauty of bhakti is that we can dovetail everything we are doing in Krishna's service and gradually become purified. Prabhupada gives us the explanation that if one wants to make money, you can make money. But make sure part of your money is utilized in the service of Krishna. Then the money becomes purified. If somebody wants to build a palatial building, build a very huge palatial building, install the deities in that place, worship the Lord there, and also live there. If one wants to eat a very nice meal, first cook it and offer it to Krishna and accept the remnants of prasadam. So in this way, we can dovetail all our activities in Krishna's service, and by such dovetailing, we can become purified. So, and as soon as we are purified of material desires, we are eligible to enter the spiritual sky. What is preventing us from going back home is the material desire. This material desire is like a chain around our necks. Material desires are like chains around our necks. And to break loose of this chain is to accept Krishna Bhakti. And that is the opportunity we've all been given. By associating with devotees, by hearing about Krishna, gradually the material chains are becoming weaker and weaker. And sooner or later, they will be broken. And one will feel free to go back home, back to Godhead. Text 9.
Translation. Thus, the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Prithu, followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sant Kumar. This is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Devotional service to the Lord is never considered material activity. Actually, one who is self realized engages himself in the service of the Lord perpetually, both in this life and in the next. Indeed, for devotees, there is no difference between this life and the next. In this life, a neophyte devotee is trained to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in the next life, he approaches that Supreme Person in Vankut and renders the same devotional service. Even for the neophyte devotee, devotional service is considered Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Devotional service to the Lord is never considered a material activity since he is acting on the Brahmbhuta platform. A devotee is already liberated. 4.23.9 purport.
Narada Muni told Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakti Yogasya Tasarvam Antarayata Yad Bhaktaha Manyamano Hrisikesham Smayamana Uvachaha. He said, my dear Prahlad Maharaj, although you're only a small boy, when you heard the benedictions offered by Lord Narasimha Dev, you consider them impediments on the path of devotional service. So, Prahlad Maharaj was such an exalted devotee of Lord Narasimha Dev. Actually, it is said that Lord Narasimha Dev was compelled to come out of the pillar of Hiranyakashipu's palace because of Prahlad Maharaj's devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj was such a staunch devotee that he practically controlled the Lord. Because Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, now where is your God? You are getting all the strength from. Where is he? And Prahlad said, God is everywhere. And Hiranyakashipu said, is your God inside this pillar? And Prahlad answered in the affirmative. He said, yes, he's everywhere. He's also inside that pillar. And when Hiranyakashipu heard that, he picked up his sword and wanted to kill God in the pillar. And because Prahlad Maharaj had told his father that the Supreme Lord was in the pillar, immediately Lord Narasimha Dev had to enter the pillar and appear from the pillar to prove the words of Prahlad Maharaj to be correct. So Prahlad was such a devotee, so great a devotee, that the Lord was ready to act according to his desire. The Lord was ready to act according to his words. But when the Lord wanted to offer benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj because of his devotional service, Prahlad Maharaj told Narasimha Dev, I am not a businessman. I don't want any reward for my devotional service. And when Lord Narasimha Dev heard this, he smiled. He was happy that this my devotee does not want any benediction from me. He just wants devotional service. So therefore, devotional service is not material. It is directly connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the means by which we can actually please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 10.
Maharaj Prithu thus engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to principles, 24 hours daily. Thus, his love and devotion into the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, developed and became unflinching and fixed. Devotional service to the Lord is never one who fully engages in the favorable service of the Lord. His service is called Bhagavad Dharma. or pure devotional service. When one who is not inspired by material desires and is not contaminated by the process of fruitive activities and empiric speculation fully engages in the favorable service of the Lord, his service is called Bhagavad Dharma or pure devotional service. In this verse, the word Brahmani does not refer to the impersonal Brahman. Impersonal Brahman is a subordinate feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since impersonal Brahman worshippers desire to merge into the Brahman effulgence, they cannot be considered followers of Bhagavad Dharma.
Text 11.
By regularly discharging devotional service, Prithu Maharaj became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubt. Thus, he was freed from the clutches of false ego and the material conception of life. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee immediately becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Because of his regular discharge of devotional service, a devotee attains the transcendental stage of life. Since his mind is transcendently situated, he cannot think of anything but the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the meaning of the word samsmarana. Samsmarana Anupurtya. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee immediately becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva refers to that platform which is above the modes of material nature, including the mode of goodness. In the material world, the mode of goodness is considered to be representative of the highest perfection, but one has to transcend this mode also and come to the stage of Shuddha Sattva or pure goodness, where the three qualities of material nature cannot act from perfect.
Thank you. So the thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Smaratam Hiridi Viniyasya Vidam Dandanka Kantakai Swapada Palavam Rama Admajutir Agata Tataha. Meditating on the lotus feet of Lord Ramachandra in the forest of Dandakranya, the sages were enlightened. So the devotees of the Lord are accustomed to licking the honey available at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. There is some honey at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. There is some nectar at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the devotees, they're always attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. They want to lick that honey. And that is why they meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. So, meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord means to hear constantly about the activities of the Lord. And we become accustomed to hearing. And we don't want to separate ourselves from hearing. It means we are meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. Gradually, we'll develop the taste. Gradually, we begin to relish the narrations about the activities of the Lord. And that will keep the mind engaged. That will keep the mind away from sense gratification. An idle mind is the devil's workshop, but an engaged mind leads to bhakti, leads to bliss. So we must always have the mind engaged in Krishna's service. by hearing. And this will help us fix the mind at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 12.
Translation. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaj Prithu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. Being thus able to get all instructions from him, he gave up all other practices of yoga and jnana. He was not even interested in the perfection of the yoga and jnana systems, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, narrations about Krishna, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. Slide. Actually, the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. As long as one is too much absorbed in the bodily conception of life, he becomes interested in many different processes of self realization, such as the mystic yoga system or the system utilizing the speculative empiric methods. However, when one understands that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Krishna, he realizes Krishna within everyone's heart and therefore helps everyone who is interested in Krishna consciousness. Actually, the perfection of life depends on one's inclination to hear about Krishna. It is therefore mentioned in this verse, Yavad Gadagraja Kathasu Ratim na Kuryat. Unless one becomes interested in Krishna in his pastimes and activities, there is no question of liberation by means of yoga practice or speculative knowledge. 12 purport.
Text 13.
In due course of time, Prithu Maharaj was able to fix his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna and thus completely situated on the Brahma Bhuta platform, he gave up the material body. If one can remember Krishna at the time of death, he is immediately transferred to Goloka Vrindavan or Krishna Loka, and thus his life becomes successful. Those who are practicing Krishna consciousness know that their examination will be held at the time of death. If one can remember Krishna at death, he is immediately transferred to Goloka Vrindavan or Krishna Loka, and thus his life becomes successful. Prithu Maharaj, by the grace of Krishna, could understand that the end of his life was near, and thus he became very jubilant and proceeded to completely give up his body on the Brahma Bhuta stage by practicing the yogic process. It is thoroughly described in the following verses how one can voluntarily give up this body and return home back to Godhead.
Thank you. So, if one can remember Krishna at the time of death, he is immediately transferred to Goloka Vrindavan or Krishna Loka, and thus his life becomes successful. So this is the ultimate goal. This is the fruit, the ultimate fruit of all our devotional endeavors, to be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. Yam yam vapis maranam bhavam tyajate ante kalevaram. Krishna is saying at the time of death, whenever one is able to remember, that he shall attain without fail. So this practice of Krishna consciousness is a training of the mind so that at the end of this life, one can remember Krishna. And as soon as one is able to remember Krishna, one life becomes successful. That is the final examination that everybody has to write. Remembering the Lord at the time of death is very crucial. There is nothing more important than this. Our wealth cannot help us remember Krishna at the time of death. Our social status cannot help us to remember Krishna at the time of death. Even our family tradition, they cannot help us at the time of death. And so it is very crucial that while we are alive, we are strong, we are healthy, we have to practice very seriously. It's a practice makes perfect. If we practice so seriously in this life, and even at the time of death, somehow we can remember Krishna. Srila Prabhupada says, if a devotee practices Krishna consciousness very seriously, but at the time of death, somehow or the other, he cannot remember Krishna, Krishna will remember the devotee. Saint Krishna is so grateful that if a devotee is endeavoring all life to remember him, and somehow or the other, at the time of death, his voice is choked, his memory is choked, and he cannot remember Krishna, Krishna will remember the devotee, and Krishna will deliver the devotee. So we're in good hands. We're in Krishna's hands. And our only duty is to strive to execute our devotional activities without fail. And Krishna will do the rest. So if we can remember Krishna at the time of death, then we become eligible to be transferred to Goloka Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada says a devotee must keep death in front of him. Generally, people who want to forget about death, they don't want to discuss anything concerning death. But that is the final thing everybody has to go through. So Srila Prabhupada's advice is that we should keep death in front of us. We should be looking at death in front of us so that it reminds us. The death reminds us that we have a job to accomplish. We have some homework to do. And that is remembering Krishna at the time of death. So this is the homework, this is the examination, this is the challenge that we all face. And we have to take the lessons very seriously, take our practice very seriously, and Krishna will help us. At the time of leaving this body, somehow or the other, we can remember Krishna. Text 14.
When Maharaj Prithu practiced a particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the door of his anus with his ankles, pressed his right and left calves, and gradually raised his live hair upward, passing it on the circle of his navel up to his heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his two eyebrows. When the yogi reaches the Agya Chakra between the two eyebrows, he is able to penetrate the Brahm Randra or the whole of his skull and go to any planet he desires. The aim of this particular system of asana, known as the sitting posture of liberation or Muktasana, is to attain success in Kundalini Chakra or gradually raise the life from the Mooladhara Chakra to the Swadhisthana Chakra, then to the Manipura Chakra, and to the Anahata Chakra, and the Vishuddhi Chakra, and final to the Agya Chakra. When the yogi reaches to the Agya Chakra between the two eyebrows, he is able to penetrate the Brahmarandra or the whole of his skull and go to any planet he desires, up to the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha or Krishna Lok from the purport.
Yeah, thank you, Hare Krishna. So this is the route for the expert yogis. The expert yogis, the Kundalini yogis, or the Sat Chakra yogis. They raise the Kundalini from the base of the spinal cord and then passes it through is it the Muladhara chakra, to the Swadhisthana chakra, to the Manipura chakra, to the Anahata chakra, to the Vishuddha chakra, and finally to the Agya chakra. So these chakras are located in different places of the body. And then the Agya chakra is located between the two eyebrows. When one is able to raise the Kundalini to the between the eyebrows, he has attained mystical perfection. He can easily pass through the Brahma Randra, which is the hole at the back of the head, is on the skull. And when one is able to direct his soul to pass through that Brahma Randra, he has attained perfection in the practice of yoga, and so he can choose his destination. So that is the Sat Chakra Yoga. Of course, in this age of Kali, it is not easily achievable. People practice yoga, but their yoga practice is just to improve their material situation. They want to improve their health. That is not the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga is to link with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not to build the body. No matter how much you try to build this body, it will fall apart. So yoga is for linking the soul to the Supreme. So therefore, the Sat Chakra yogis, this is their goal, how to raise the Kundalini to the Agya chakra, and finally through the Brahma Randra. And then one is considered successful because he can choose any planet of his choice, even including the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha Lokas. For a devotee, he doesn't need all this. A devotee simply needs to love Krishna. A devotee needs to develop affection for Krishna. The rest, Krishna will do. The rest will be accomplished by Krishna's mercy. That is the difference between these mystic yogis and the bhaktas. The bhaktas, they depend on Krishna's mercy, and the yogis, they depend on their practice. So better we depend on Krishna's mercy, because Krishna is always eager to deliver his devotee from the material world. So better we depend on Krishna's mercy, especially in this age, when it's very difficult to practice yoga. The conditions are so hellish that to practice this yoga, Sat Chakra yoga, and achieve perfection is almost impossible. Even 5,000 years ago, Arjuna, when Krishna recommended this Sat Chakra yoga for Arjuna, Arjuna said impossible. He said the mind is chanchalam. The mind is always on the move. So how can you practice yoga when you can't control your mind? So better we try to think of Krishna. Better we engage in Krishna service. Better we hear something about Krishna. And gradually Krishna will situate himself in our hearts, in our minds. And at the time of death, Krishna will manifest his mercy and take us back home, back to Godhead. Text 15.
In this way, Prithu Maharaj gradually raised his air of life up to the hole in his skull. whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually, he merged his air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. There is a small chance of being promoted to spiritual planet from the Brahma effulgence or the Brahmajyoti. When a living entity gives up the material coverings, he remains a spirit soul. This spirit soul must enter into the spiritual sky to merge into the Brahma effulgence. Unfortunately, unless the living entity has information of the spiritual world and the Vaikuntha, there is a 99.9% chance of his falling down again into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to a spiritual planet from the Brahma effulgence or the Brahmajyoti. This Brahmajyoti is considered by personalists to be without variety, and the Buddhists consider it to be void. In either case, whether one accepts the spiritual sky as being without variety or void, there is none of the spiritual bliss which is enjoyed in the spiritual planets, the Vaikutas or Krishna Loka. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.23.15 purport.
Thank you. Text 16.
Prabhuji, can I ask a question here?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in the previous words, we were talking about that how Maharaj Prithu raised his life here and how he left the body. So, in the previous verses, we were talking like that why he went to forest because he is a Shaktavesh avatar, and in the future may not anyone say like that he didn't go, so there is no need to go to forest and do the penances and austerities, no need to do that. So just to for he's an exemplary, to set an example, he did it. So now the same it's small questions coming that he's a Shaktavesh avatar, and how why is he so why is he leaving the body in this way? Could I mean that for devotee, as you explained, that there is no need to do all these things. We are dependent on Krishna. So if you can please.
Yes. He did it because, that his time was Satya Yuga. In Satya Yuga, the process of meditation was this method. So also we have to consider the processes for achieving the spiritual sky according to the different ages. In Krita Yuga, the method was this that Prithu Maharaj is following. And in Treta Yuga, the method was sacrifices. In Dwarapa Yuga, the method was Achana. But in Kali Yuga, the method is Harinam Sankirtan. So each yuga has a specific method of attaining perfection. So because this happened in Satya Yuga, Prithu Maharaj had to follow the standard process of achieving success, perfection. That's why he did that.
Thank you so much.
That's okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
This is
So
Radhakishan Prabhuji. Do you have any question to ask? You raised your hand.
Yeah, somebody's hand is up. You can ask a question.
Is this Radhakishan Prabhuji? Oh.
Okay. Then we go on to text 16. Is it 16 or 15? Yeah, 16. We just read 15.
Jai Mataji.
16.
Yes, Mataji. In this Hare Krishna. In this way, according to the different positions of the various parts of the body, Prithu Maharaj merged his bodily air with the air of the sky, his bodily liquids, such as blood and various secretions, with the totality of water, and he merged earth with water, then water with fire, fire with air, air with sky, and so on. There is a small change of being promoted to a spiritual planet from the Brahman effulgence or the Brahma Jyoti. When a living entity gives up the material coverings, he remains a spirit soul. The spirit soul must enter into the spiritual sky to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Unfortunately, unless the living entity has information of the spiritual world and the Vaikunthas, there is a 99.9% chance of his falling down again into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to a spiritual planet from the Brahman.
16, it's 15. We need to
We
change.
are read,
It's
we are read,
15.
we are read 15 already, so it's 16. Read 16.
Where is 16? It's not on the screen.
Okay, sorry, the 16 is here, but it's not, I'm not even seeing it on my,
Yeah, it's visible now, Prabhuji. It's visible.
okay.
Okay.
Mataji, please.
Similarly, the living entity, after entering a womb of a mother, also collects his gross and subtle bodies. Similarly, this body is also created according to the same process by the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. After entering the universe, creates the cosmic manifestations one after another. Similarly, the living entity, after entering a womb of a mother, also collects his gross and subtle bodies, taking ingredients from the totality of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. The words Yatha Sthanam Vibhagashah indicate that one should know the process of creation and should meditate upon the creative process inversely and thus become free from material contamination. 16 purport.
Yeah, so the material creation is from subtle to gross, beginning with sound, then ether, then air, then fire, then water, then earth. So from subtle to gross. When a living entity is to die and leave the material world, the process is reversed. It is from gross to subtle. So that is what is being described here. The body is also created according to the same process by the Supreme Lord. The personality of God, and after entering the universe, creates a cosmic manifestation one after another. Similarly, the living entity, after entering a womb of a mother, also collects its gross and subtle bodies, taking ingredients from the totality of the sky, air, fire, water, and earth. The words Yatasta Anam Vibhagasha indicate that one should know the process of creation and should meditate upon the creative process inversely, and thus become free from material contamination. So it means that first, the living entity carries his subtle body, which is carried in the semen and deposited in the mother's womb. While in the mother's womb, he now began to accumulate the material elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. That's how the material body becomes manifest in the mother's womb. And when it's completely done, matured, manufactured, then it comes out. So in the same way, when death is approaching, then there's a reverse order. The earth should merge with the water merges with the fire merges with the air merges with the ether merges with sound. And in this way, the material elements, they collapse and frees the living entity from material entanglement. So it is said here that one should meditate upon this creative process in an inversely manner. and thus become free from material contamination. So it means that creation is one way and liberation is the other way. Creation means we are waxing a material body. We are putting on a heavy dress, a heavy, what do you call it? Prison suit. But liberation means we are dropping the heavy dress. We are dropping the physical dress. We are shedding off the material dress and then becoming subtle and spiritual. So that is the reverse order. And that is what Priti Maharaj, he did. Of course, unless one is a green yogi, he cannot do that. And so we say in this age of Kali, this process is not practical. So one has to take to the process of bhakti, take to the process of Krishna consciousness, take to the process of remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And such remembrance will help the living entity to remember the Lord at the time of death. And if we are able to chant the names of the Lord and remember the Lord at the time of death, we are able to surpass everything else and attain the spiritual kingdom. Text 17.
Prabhuji, can I ask one question, please?
Yes.
Prabhuji, once we had discussion. So please forgive me for the question. I just wanted to ask that when someone leaves the body, if he passes the stool, something, so it means that that soul is going to the lower planets, something like this.
Yes, it is explained that at the time of death, we can observe where we can observe to understand where the soul passes through. If somebody dies vomiting, it means the soul has passed through the mouth. If somebody dies urinating, it means the soul has passed through the genitals. If somebody dies passing stool, it means the soul has passed through the anus. Somebody dies with blood coming through the ears or pus, it means the soul has passed through the ears. Somebody dies crying or water coming out of the eyes, it means the person has passed through the eyes. So the things that are ejected or ingested at the time of death indicates where the soul has passed.
Um, Devotees have to do something with this, Prabhuji, that if if devotees are leaving the body and if devotee is leaving the body from any of the doors, so does it really matter for a devotee?
Well, as far as devotees are concerned, a devotee can leave through any of these channels. It is left to Krishna. I remember one Prabhupada disciple, he was very sick in the US. And the final moment, people were sitting near him, they saw that he was looking in one direction. He was no more talking to anybody, but he was still alive. They would watch him look at different things, give signals, signs, and so on. So they were watching, then his eyes went in a different direction. And then all of a sudden, he shouted, "Oh, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, you are here." And he left his body at that moment. So it was understood that Bhakti Vinod Thakur appeared before that devotee because that devotee had been a very, very good preacher, a book distributor. He had traveled around the whole world, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books and sharing Krishna consciousness. So he had endeared himself to Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And so at the time of death, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur came and took him. And so one could say that he passed through the eyes because people could see that his eyes are moving from one direction towards another direction. And all of a sudden he just shouted, "Oh, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, you are here." And that's his last, he passed. So for a devotee, Krishna and the previous acharyas, they will decide how the devotee lives the world. But for the non-devotees, it is important. If they should die vomiting, die passing stool, urinating, it is understood that the soul has passed through there. Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
His Radha Krishna Prabhuji also wants to ask something.
Yes, you should ask this question.
Prabhuji, you said that Rudra is Jeev and is engaged in destruction. We know that Rudra is Shiva and it doesn't come either in Jiva or in Vishnu Tattva. Can you kindly explain that?
It is said that Rudra is in between. Rudra is in between. If something is in between.
Yeah.
This
I
is
heard
in
that you
between.
said it is a Jiva.
Yes. In fact, I also read across it just a few days ago. I came across Srila Prabhupada mentioning I can find the area for you. In the Madhyam Lila, Adi Lila, Madhyama Lila, one of the chapters, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that Rudra is a jiva. I was surprised to hear that also. That Rudra is a jiva, and that is why he engages in destruction. So I can get in the reference where I read it. I was surprised. But I immediately understand because Prabhupada also says Rudra is in a marginal position. Is neither the Supreme Lord nor Jiva. So if it's marginal.
Yes, Prabhuji, that is safe. That is very safe when we say that Rudra is having marginal position. Neither is a Jiva nor is a Vishnu Tattva.
Yeah, but when they say the living entity is in a marginal position, we can either be in the spiritual world or we can be in the material world. So therefore, if Rudra is described as marginal, and here Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that in the capacity of destroying the world, he is a jiva. I was surprised to read that. But I started to reason that yes, if somebody is in a marginal position, he can assume the position of a jiva to perform the service of destruction. And he can also assume the position of a non-jiva because it's a marginal position. Somebody who's in a marginal position, he can go either way. That is what it means to be marginal. He can go either way.
We are called as marginal potency as a human beings are called as a marginal, and Shiva is a separate tattva. Shiva tattva we call it.
No problem, Prabhu. I said I can refer you. I'm not saying it. I also read it from Prabhupada's books. I am not proposing it. Until 2 days or 3 days ago, I've never come across that information, but I was just doing some research, and I came across in Prabhupada's purport, and Prabhupada is saying that Shiva is in a position of a Rudra to destroy, is in a position of a Jiva. I was surprised to read that, and it's Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila. I can get rid of the verse and you can read the purport and you can see for yourself what Prabhupada is saying. So I was a bit surprised, but I tried to reason that because somebody is in the marginal position, he could do the service of a jiva.
Okay,
So
Prabhuji, thank you very
I
much.
will get it. I will send you the quotation, and you can read it. Maybe my understanding is different.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. So
Hare
let's
Krishna.
proceed. Let's proceed. We have to finish this chapter today. Text 17.
He amalgamated the mind with the senses and the senses with the sense objects according to their respective positions, and he also amalgamated the material ego with the total material energy, Mahat Tattva. Sound
Fine.
vibration from the spiritual sky can automatically cleanse all material contaminations. Sound vibration from the spiritual sky can automatically cleanse all material contaminations. When the mind is completely washed of all material contamination, the pure consciousness acts. The sound vibration from the spiritual sky can automatically cleanse all material contaminations as confirmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Cheto Darpan Marjanam. We need only take the advice of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and chant the Hare Krishna mantra to cleanse the mind of all material contamination. And this may be considered the summary of this difficult verse. As soon as the whole material contamination is washed away by this process of chanting, all desires and reactions to material activities become immediately vanquished, and real life, peaceful existence begins from Prabhupada's purport.
Jai. So it is said, Swacha Prakritai Sinido Madhuryastirta Bhurnirinam Muni Nati Apamritram Iksho Pashparsha Kirtanai. O king, a saintly person is just like water because he is free from all contamination and gentle by nature, and by speaking creates a beautiful vibration like that of the flowing Ganges. Just by seeing, touching, or hearing such a saintly person, the living entity is purified. Just as one is cleansed by contact with pure water, thus a saintly person, just like a holy place, purifies all those he comes in contact with, because he is always chanting the glories of the Lord and producing such wonderful spiritual sound vibration. So the sound vibration emanating from the lips of the devotees is a powerful method, instrument for cleansing our contaminated minds and heart. So the more we hear, the more we are purified. The more we associate, the more we become free from the material contamination. So therefore, one has to always endeavor to associate with saintly people. Text 18.
Translation. Prithu Maharaj then offered the total designation of the living entity unto the supreme controller of illusory energy. Being released from all the designations by which the living entity became entrapped, he became free by knowledge and renunciation and by the spiritual force of his devotional service. In this way, being situated in his original constitutional position of Krishna consciousness, he gave up this body as a Prabhu or controller of the senses. When one is strong enough to give up the influence of material energy, he is called a Prabhu. When Prithu Maharaj became spiritually powerful by the enhancement of his spiritual knowledge, jnana, and renunciation of material desires, he became a Prabhu or master of his senses, sometimes called Goswami or Swami. This means that he was no longer controlled by the influence of material energy. When one is strong enough to give up the influence of material energy, he is called Prabhu. In this verse, the word Sarupastha is also very significant. The real identity of the individual soul lies in understanding or attaining the knowledge that is eternally a servant of Krishna. This understanding is called Sarupo Palabdhi. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.23.18 purport.
Jivera Swarupa Haya Krishna Das. The living entity, his Swarup, his eternal nature, is a servant of Krishna. That's our constitutional position, eternal constitutional position. Our duty is to give pleasure to Krishna. So, one who comes to this knowledge that I am eternally a servant of Krishna, he has attained perfection, which is Swarupa Palabdhi. So we are being trained by the discipline succession to come to the platform of accepting our position as Krishna's servants. Then we can be called Prabhu. Once we become a servant of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Master, then you can be called Prabhu. Text 19.
May I read?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mataji.
The queen, the wife of Prithu Maharaj, whose name was Archi, followed her husband into the forest. Since she was a queen, her body was very delicate. Although she did not deserve to live in the forest, she voluntarily touched her lotus feet to the ground. Slide. In Vedic traditions, there are hundreds of similar examples of such renounced queens who dedicated themselves to their husbands. In Vedic civilization, there are hundreds of similar examples of such renunciation on the part of queens and dedication to the husband. The goddess of fortune, Mother Sita, followed her husband Ramachandra when he went to the forest. Lord Ramachandra went to the forest in compliance with the order of his father, Maharaj Dashrath. But Mother Sita was not so ordered. Nonetheless, she voluntarily accepted the path of her husband. Similarly, Gandhari, the wife of King Dhritarashtra, also followed her husband into the forest. Being the wives of great personalities like Prithu, Lord Ramachandra, and Dhritarashtra, these are ideal chaste women. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:23-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Verse 20.
Although she was not accustomed to such difficulties, Queen Archie followed her husband in the regulative principles of living in the forest like great sages. She lay down on the ground and ate only fruits, flowers, and leaves, and because she was not fit for these activities, she became frail and thin. Yet, because of the pleasure she dried in serving her husband, she did not feel any difficulties. A woman's religious principle is to serve her husband in all conditions. The words bhartuhu vrata dharma nishtaya indicate that a woman's duty or religious principle is to serve her husband in all conditions. In Vedic civilization, a man is taught from the beginning of his life to become a brahmachari, then an ideal grhastha, then vanaprastha, then sannyasi. And the wife is taught just to follow the husband strictly in all conditions of life. After the period of brahmacharya, a man accepts a householder's life, and the woman is also taught by her parents to be a chaste wife. Thus, when a girl and a boy are united, both are trained for a life dedicated to a higher purpose. Purport 20%.
Yeah, so the example is Vishnu Priya Devi. She was such a devoted wife of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the second wife of Mahaprabhu. The Mahaprabhu's first wife, Lakshmi Priya, passed away when Lord Chaitanya was in East Bengal. And on the request of his mother, she married the second time. And shortly after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took sannyas. So it is said that Vishnu Priya Devi Dasi, she performed such severe austerities after the husband left, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had accepted sannyas and was performing austerities. Vishnu Priya also adopted a very severe life. It is said that she would chant one round of the Hare Krishna mantra and he would take 1 grain of rice and put it in a bowl. So that number of rounds she would chant in a day, that number of grains she will get, she will count. And then she will cook that rice. And that is what she will eat for the day. So if she chanted 100 rounds, she would count 100 seeds of rice, 100 grains of rice. And thus she will cook and eat. If she could chant 300 rounds, then she will count 300 rice grains and she will cook that to eat. And then she was worshiping the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Dharmeshwara. If you go to Navadvip town, that deity is there with his hands outstretched. It is said that deity was given to her and she worshipped that deity for 80 years. I think she was 16 years when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. And it says she lived for 96 years. So for 80 years, she worshipped Dharmeshwara Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, following the example, following the austerities that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing in his sannyas ashram. She also adopted that lifestyle, just as Archie is doing here. Archie is an amazing queen, as we shall see in the next verse, in next verse 21. So let's read 21.
Prabhuji, can I ask one question?
Yes.
It's little, we take the example of Gandhari. So
Yeah.
once I got the argument that from a materialistic person, that not a materialistic person, from that she could not tie, her eyes, and she could serve in a better manner to Dhritarashtra. So how to defeat?
Well, Gandhari, her example is that she was thinking about her own situation. See, she was thinking that if she did not blindfold herself, she will be thinking she's superior to the husband. She will be thinking she's better than the husband, and that may give her some pride. And so she did not want that pride. And that is why she blindfolded herself. So we can say she did that on spiritual grounds, on cultural grounds, that she did not want to feel superior to the husband. She did not want to feel proud. She wanted to just be on the same level, at least on the same level with the husband. She didn't want to feel superior in any way. So that's why she did that. Because, as you said, if she had not blindfolded herself, probably she could have served her husband better. But when it comes to a matter of choice, you have to consider, spiritual consideration becomes paramount. So she had to consider, if I maintain my sight and serve my husband, and if I cover my eyes and take a humble position, which is the best? So there is a choice there. And because she's a great personality, exalted personality, she chose to cover her eyes. And because of that, she developed so much spiritual Shakti. Because of that, she became so powerful. When the opportunity for us to enjoy our senses, when we have the opportunity to gratify the senses, and we refuse, we deny, immediately we become empowered. So because Gandhari, she had an opportunity to see, but she blindfolded herself voluntarily, she immediately attracted so much power from the universe, from everywhere, that she became very exalted. Until today, we are always talking about Gandhari. So the example she set is a historical example. And it will be continued to be spoken about. She will be continued to be glorified for eternity. So from that perspective, it was better she blindfolded herself. Just for a few years, even she lived 100 years, but now over 5,000 years, we are still glorifying her. So she's living in sound. And that is the position of a devotee. A devotee lives in sound. So Gandhari preferred that after she was gone, her example will inspire many, many women in many years and millenniums to come. So that's why she did that. It's a tough one, but she chose that.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
can we say one thing with it to, if we are preaching to someone that, yes, this is good, but yes, now we should use our eyes to have Lord Save Mana Krishna Pada Aravinda. Like we should engage all our senses, so eyes should be have the vision of the Lord. So this way, in the Kali Yuga,
Yeah, I agree with you also that in Kali Yuga, this kind of standard you can find. You can find, yeah. So better we utilize it in the service of Krishna, we dovetail it in the service of Krishna than to just deprive ourselves and the service of the Lord. So yes, agreed.
thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So let's go to text 21.
When Queen Archie saw her husband, who had been so merciful to her and the earth, no longer showed symptom of life, she lamented for a little while and then built a fairy pair on the top of the hill and placed the body of her husband on it.
So 21, yeah, 21. Yeah.
Thank you. Queen Archie's bravery and detachment. When a living entity transfers from one body to another, a process generally known as death, a sane man does not lament, for he knows that the living entity is not dead, but is simply transferred from one body to another. The queen should have been afraid of being alone in the forest with the body of her husband, but since she was a great wife of a great personality, she lamented for a while, but immediately understood that she had many duties to perform. Thus, instead of wasting her time in lamentation, she immediately prepared a fairy pair on top of a hill and then placed the body of her husband on it to be burnt. From Bhaktivedanta Purport.
Yeah, so Queen Archie is an exceptional queen, exceptional wife, because she was alone with her husband in the forest, and the husband passed away. She was not frightened. She was not afraid. She just lamented for a while and then did the needful. So we can understand her bravery, We can understand her courageous nature. We can understand her exalted spiritual position because she was on such a spiritual platform. She was no more identifying with the body. And that is why she could behave like this. In the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, or maybe 7th canto, there is a story, actually a verse, which says that Ushnaresu abut raja suyagya iti vishrutaha sapaidnai nihato yudhe yatastam upashantaha. In the state known as Ushinar, there was a celebrated king named Suyagya. When the king was killed in the battle, his kinsmen, including her queen, they surrounded the dead body and began to lament and refused to put the body on the fire pyre, refused to cremate the body. They were lamenting for the king's death, and they sat around his body and they were lamenting and crying because they were ignorant of the spiritual identity of the king. They were ignorant of their own spiritual identity. They thought the body of the king is a king. But in the case of Archie, yes, she felt some separation. She lamented for a while because of separation. That is obvious. But immediately she understood. He's a spirit soul, he's gone. I'm also a spirit soul, I'll be gone. So what is the cause for lamentation? Immediately she thought, let me do the needful. So immediately she gathered firewood, put it on the hill, and struggled to put the husband's body on the pyre, and he set the body on fire. And then we shall see in text 22, she performed the Sahagamana, the sati ceremony of jumping into the fire. So that is the text 22. We can read verse 22.
Translation. After this, the queen executed the necessary funerary functions and offered oblations of water. After bathing in the river, she offered obeisances to various demigods situated in the sky in the different planetary systems. She then circumambulated their fire, and while thinking of the lotus feet of her husband, entered its flames.
This is serious.
The practice of a Sahagamana in Vedic civilization. The system of Sahagamana had been practiced in Vedic civilization from the time immemorial. Even after the British period in India, this practice was rigidly observed, but soon it degraded to the point that even when the wife was not strong enough to enter the fire of her dead husband, the relatives would force her to enter. Thus, this practice had to be stopped. But even today, there are still some solitary cases where a wife will voluntarily enter the fire and die with her husband. Even after 1940, we personally knew of a chaste wife who died in this way. 4.23.22 purport.
Yeah, so the Vedic tradition is that when a husband dies, the wife feels so much separation and she thinks, better I just go through this momentary pain of entering the fire than to stay for the rest of my life without my master, without my husband. So the separation, the pain of separation, that one is going to live without a husband for many years can all happen in a moment as soon as one enters the fire. So they prefer to enter the fire. And so Queen Archie, she did that. But later on, it became a forced tradition. It was no more voluntary. And so laws have to be passed to stop this by forced Sahagamana. It is a voluntary thing. A woman thinks, my partner is gone, my companion is gone, and I cannot live in this world alone. Better I go with him. So he voluntarily enters the fire. And that was the test of chastity in those days. In the Vedic times, it was a test of chastity. And here, Archie demonstrated perfectly how that should be done. She personally arranged the fire pyre of the husband, took a bath in the river, circumambulated the body, paid obeisance to the demigods, and jumped into the fire. Amazing. And certainly, wherever the husband is going, she would follow, as we shall see in the preceding verses. Verse 23.
Prabhuji, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
Prabhuji, if we talk about devotees here, then because devotees think that, of course, husband has left the body, but I'm here that, of course, for time being, she would feel separation, but then she will engage in the service of the, in the preaching service or whatever the service of the Lord. So how to, it's really like for the devotees, I think, it is like good to devotees' wives are also very chaste, and is there? It's all about consciousness or what? And one more question: if the husband is going to and I have also heard that husband wife can worship lordship till Vaikuntha planets, not to the Golok Vrindavan. Golok Vrindavan only Krishna is a male there, so you cannot serve Lakshmi and uh, Vishnu, you can serve together, husband, wife, if they are, both very lovable like this. So,
Well, in Kali Yuga and this our era, this is no more recommended. So there is no question of a woman entering the fire or the pyre after the husband is gone. No, it's no more a practice. So that is out. Better one remains married to Krishna and render service under the guidance of the spiritual master. That is most welcome. And as you said, in a Vaikuntha planet, if there is attachment between husband and wife, and they go together, then they want to continue to serve together. That is possible in the Vaikuntha lokas. In Krishna loka, there is no marriage, there is no relationship as husband and wife. In Krishna loka, the man has to join the cowhead boys as Krishna's cowhead boy, and the lady or the wife has to join the gopis as Krishna's gopis. There is no question of marriage in Krishna lok. But in Vaikuntha, it is possible you can still serve together in Vaikuntha, though there is no sex, and there is no childbirth, and there is no such carnal relationship, but you can serve together in Vaikuntha. Is that okay? Let's move on.
thank you.
Text 23.
After observing this brave act performed by the chaste wife Archie, the wife of the great king Prithu, many thousands of the wives of the demigods, along with their husbands, offered prayers to the queen, for they were very much satisfied.
You can read the next verse, 24.
At the, at that time, the demigods were situated on the top of Mandara Hill, and all their wives began to shower flowers on the funeral funeral pyre and began to talk amongst themselves as follows. Maharaji, there is no slide of text 23 or 24. It's
There are
written
no slides.
22.
There are no slides. Go to 25. There are no
Okay.
purports. Go to 25.
The wives of the demigods said, all glories to Queen Archie. We can see that this queen of the great King Prithu, the emperor of all the kings of the world, has served her husband with mind, speech, and body exactly as the goddess of fortune serves the supreme personality of Godhead, Yagnesha or Vishnu.
Slide.
Similarly, the goddess of fortune in the Vaikuntha planets also serves Narayana personally. Although there are many devotees prepared to serve the Lord, we can observe that even in the history of of this world, when Lord Krishna, the Supreme Vishnu, was ruling over Dwarika, Queen Rukmini, who was the chief of all Krishna's queens, used to serve Lord Krishna personally in spite of having many hundreds of maid servants to assist her. Similarly, the goddess of fortune in the Vaikuntha planets also serves Narayana personally. Although there are many thousands of devotees prepared to serve the Lord, this practice is also followed by the wives of the demigods, and in days past, the wives of men also followed this same principle.
Yeah, so even Lord Krishna in Dwaraka, Rukmini had so many maidservants, but Rukmini made sure she would personally cook for Krishna, he would personally serve Krishna. That is the duty of the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is so qualified to give Krishna pleasure. It's the Ladini Shakti. The Ladini Shakti, she is the source of pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore she understands how to please the Lord completely. So therefore it is recommended here that even though there are so many servants, but Lakshmi Devi is always prepared to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that Mother Lakshmi, she has 6 opulences. She has wealth, she has strength, she has influence, she has beauty, she has knowledge and renunciation. These opulences are received from the goddess of fortune. Now, Lakshmi is addressed here as Devi, the goddess, because in Vaikuntha, she supplies all opulences to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, who in this way enjoy natural life in the Vaikuntha planet. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with his consort, the goddess of fortune, who carries a lotus flower in her hand. Mother Lakshmi is described in this verse as Sati, the supremely chaste wife of the Supreme Lord, because she never diverts her attention from the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Mother Lakshmi is described as Shriyam because she has these 6 opulences of wealth, strength, influence, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, by which she serves Lord Narayan perfectly. So she uses her opulences to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead very nicely. Text 26.
Prabhuji, can I ask one question, please?
Yeah?
Prabhuji, I have heard that Lakshmi ji wants to enter into the Rasa Leela, but she was not allowed because she cannot leave her opulence. So here we are saying that renunciation. So how to compile these two things? That she is doing austerity in the forest to enter.
Well, I think the understanding is that, you see, the Lakshmis, they are expansions of Srimati Radharani, and their duty is to serve Narayan. And so Lakshmis are endowed with all these 6 opulences. And so how can she give them up? She cannot give them up. She is Lakshmi. She is the husband of Lord Narayan. And she remains the husband, as she's the wife of Lord Narayan, she remains the wife of Lord Narayan. So therefore, even though she has the desire to engage in the rasa dance, to engage in Krishna Leela, but she is disqualified because of all these opulences. She can't give them up because by her nature, she has to have them in the service of Lord Narayan. So she's performing austerities, but it is difficult for her to be without these 6 opulences. And as such, she will never be qualified. She will never be qualified to participate in that rasa dance. Her qualification is to serve Lord Narayan, so she should be satisfied with that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
So let's go to text 26.
Yes. The wives of the demigods continued. Just see how this chaste lady, Archie, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward, as far as we can see. The wives of the denizens of the higher planetary systems were surprised to see Prithu Maharaj, an inhabitant of an inferior planetary system, go beyond their planets. Both Maharaj Prithu's airplane and the airplane carrying Queen Archie were passing out of the vision of the ladies of the higher planetary systems. These ladies were simply astonished to see how Maharaj Prithu and his wife achieved such an exalted position. Although they were the wife of the denizens of higher planetary systems, and Prithu Maharaj was an inhabitant of an inferior planetary system, the king, along with his wife, passed beyond the realms of the demigods and went upward to Vaikuntha Loka.
Jai. Prithu Maharaj ki Jai. Archie Devi ki Jai.
Jai.
So they have performed such a feat that even though they are from a lower planet, but by their devotional service, they have risen above the demigods. And this should give us some hope that by engaging in Krishna consciousness, it is a very elevated position. The result is very wonderful. The destination is just superb by engaging in Krishna consciousness. So we should not give up this process under any circumstance because the destination is great, as demonstrated by Prithu Maharaj and his wife Archie. Even the demigod, the denizens of the demigods, the denizens of the heavens, they are surprised to see such a wonderful feat being displayed by Prithu Maharaj and his wife. And so that is the power of devotional service. And we follow the footsteps of Prithu Maharaj, engage in Krishna consciousness. We shall also follow the same path. We shall transcend the heavenly planet and we shall enter into the spiritual sky. That is guaranteed. Manmana bhavama bhakto mam yajima namaskuru. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you think of me, become my devotee, offer your obeisances unto me, and worship me, you will come to me without fail. I promise you this. So Krishna has promised us that if we become his devotees, loyal devotees, sincere devotees, we will also follow the footprints of Archie and her husband. Text 27.
In this material world, every human being has a short span of life, but those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead, for they are actually on the path of liberation. For such persons, there is nothing which is not available. The wives of the denizens of the higher planetary systems did not appreciate the results of karma, jnana, and yoga. The path of liberation is not at all secure unless one attends the devotional service of the Lord. Even if one is promoted to the impersonal Brahmajyoti, he runs every chance of falling down into this material world. If it is possible to fall down from the Brahmajyoti, which is beyond the higher planetary systems in this material world, then what can be said of the ordinary yogis and karmis who can only be elevated to the higher material planets? Thus, the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary systems did not very much appreciate the results of karma, jnana, and yoga. 4.23.27 purport.
Yes, so the demigods, the wives of the demigods, they have had some realization. Having observed Prithu Maharaj perform devotional service, and now he has transcended their wells and gone into the Vaikuntha Lokas. They think, what is the use of karma? What is the use of jnana? What is the use of yoga? To hell with these things. We would engage in bhakti, we would engage in devotional service, so that we can also follow the footprints of Prithu Maharaj and Archie. So these statements will encourage us that we are on the right path. Even the demigods, Prabhupada said, even the demigods are queuing in the Hare Krishna movement to take birth so that they can chant Hare Krishna, they can practice Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Godhead. Text 28.
Riya Mataji. Any person who engages himself within this material world in performing activities that necessitate great struggle, and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult tasks of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. Prabhuji requests you to please change the slide.
28, sorry. 28, yeah.
The position of all non-devotees who are not interested in going back to Godhead is very much lamentable. However, since there is a chance of once falling down again into the material sky from the Brahman effulgence, Srila Jeev Goswami advises that in this human form of life, one's only aim should be to go back home, back to Godhead. The words sa vanchitaha indicate that once a person has obtained the human form of life, he is actually cheated if he does not make preparations to go back home, back to Godhead. The position of all non-devotees who are not interested in going back to Godhead is very much lamentable. For the human form of life is meant for executing devotional service and nothing else. Bhaktivedanta purport.
Yeah. Drulabo manasho deho dehinam shana bangura. This human form of life is really achieved. Durlabham, very difficult to achieve. And once it is achieved, one can easily perform devotional service. One can easily associate with devotees. One can easily take to the process of bhakti and achieve the greatest result of going back home, back to Godhead. But if after achieving this wonderful form of life, the human form, we do not take advantage of it, it is very much lamentable. And that should inspire us to distribute Krishna consciousness. It should inspire us to want to give everyone the chance, the opportunity to know something about Krishna. And that is the best gift that one can give to any jiva in this material world. The gift of Krishna consciousness. So we have to endeavor to spread Krishna consciousness so that people can take advantage of the human form of life and transcend this material world and go back home, back to Godhead. That is our responsibility. Text 29.
The great sage Maitreya continued speaking. My dear Vidura, when the wives of the denizens of heaven were thus talking amongst themselves, Queen Archie reached the planet which her husband Maharaj Prithu, the topmost self-realized soul, had attained. Queen Archie also entered Patiloka, but this planet is not in the material universe. According to Vedic scriptures, a woman who dies with her husband or enters into the fire in which her husband is burning also enters the same planet her husband attends. In this material world, there is a planet known as uh, Patiloka, just as there is a planet known as Pitraloka. But in this verse, the word Patiloka does not mean to any planet within this material universe. For Prithu Maharaj, being topmost amongst self-realized souls, certainly return home back to Godhead and attend one of the Vankut planets. Queen Archie also entered Patiloka, but this planet is not in the material universe, for she actually entered the planet which her husband attained. 4.23.29 purport.
Yeah, so the word Patiloka actually means the planet where the husband has reached, the planet where Prithu had attained. Patiloka, the husband's planet. So Prithu Maharaj attained one of the Vaikuntha planets. And therefore, that planet where there are millions and trillions of Vaikuntha planets. So that planet where Prithu Maharaj arrived, Archie also entered the same planet. So this is the benefit of being loyal, being chaste, being a servant of a highly advanced husband like Prithu Maharaj. Whatever destination the husband achieves, naturally, the wife will also share in his spiritual credits. So Prithu Maharaj has arrived in the Vaikuntha planet, and Archie has also arrived in the Vaikuntha planet. Text 30.
Maitreya continued, the greatest of all devotees, Maharaj Prithu, was very powerful and his character was liberal, magnificent, and magnanimous. Thus, I have described him to you as far as possible. Prabhuji.
30.
A person can be addressed Bhagwan if he is a great personality who exhibits extraordinary and uncommon features. The word Bhagavatamaha is very significant, for the word Bhagavat is used specially to refer the Supreme Personality of Godhead as word Bhagwan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is derived from the word Bhagavat. Sometimes, however, we see that the word Bhagavan is used for great personalities like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Narad Muni. This is the case with Prithu Maharaj, who is described here as the best of the Bhagavans or the best of the lords. A person can be so addressed only if he is a great personality who exhibits extraordinary and uncommon features, or who attains the greatest goal after his disappearance, or who knows the difference between knowledge and ignorance. Okay.
Hare Krishna. So 31.
Text 31. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attend the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vankut planets, back to Godhead. Chanting the names of the gopis, worship of the gopis or the devotees of the Lord is as good as a devotional service rendered directly to the Lord. The Supreme Vaishnava is the spiritual master and he is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to chant the names of the gopis. Some of the Lord's students tried to advise him to chant the name of Krishna instead, but upon hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry with his devotees, his students. The controversy on this subject reached a point that after this incident, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas because he was not taken very seriously in his grahastha ashram. The point is that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the names of the gopis, worship of the gopis or the devotees of the Lord is as good as devotional service rendered directly to the Lord.
Thank you. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu epitomized the worship of the devotees of the Lord by chanting Gopi, Gopi, Gopi. And his students, at that time he was a teacher, his students criticized him for doing that. And in the heat of all this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought that because I'm a grahastha, these students are not giving me due respect. So let me change my ashram. Of course, there's a higher reason even than this, because Mahaprabhu's mission was to distribute the holy name across the subcontinent of India and prepare the grounds for distributing the holy name across the entire planet. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyas was not just because the boys criticized him, but actually he came into this world to establish the nectar of the names of Krishna. He came to establish the devotees and establish the process of Krishna consciousness and make sure the whole world benefited. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Anugraha Bhaktanam Anugraha Yena Kenapi Santushtam Bhaktadate Nashradaya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always happy to empower his devotees. He came purposely for his devotees, and he was always happy to make his devotees happy. And in this way, Mahaprabhu inundated the whole world with Krishna consciousness using his very, very wonderful devotees. So Mahaprabhu's mission was to spread love of Godhead, and the students, they only acted as a catalyst to speed up his acceptance of sannyas so that he could profusely travel and distribute the holy names of Krishna. Text 32.
If one hears of the characteristics of Maharaj Prithu and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he's a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. And if he's a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he's a Shudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Nand Maharaj was a Vaishya who possessed 900,000 cows and ruled over many cowherd men. To take birth in a family of Brahmanas is not the ultimate finishing touch. One must have the power of a Brahmana, which is called Brahma Tejas. Similarly, taking birth in a royal family is not the all in all. One must possesses the power to rule the world. Similarly, taking birth as a Vaishya is not all. One must possesses hundreds or thousands of cows and rule over other Vaishyas, as Naranda Maharaj did in Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj was a Vaishya who possessed 900,000 cows and ruled over many cowherd men and boys. A person who is born in Shudra family can become greater than a Brahmana simply by accepting devotional service and giving oral reception to the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees.
Wonderful. So these verses are called the Falashruti, the blessing Maharaj. So here the blessings are pouring. It says, if one is a qualified Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahminical powers. If he's a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he's a Vaishya, he becomes a master of all Vaishya, other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he's a Sudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. So it's so auspicious to hear the glories of Prithu Maharaj. Text 33.
Translation. It does not matter whether one is a man or woman. Anyone who with great respect hears this narration of Maharaj Prithu will become the father of many children if he is without children, and will become the richest of men if he is without money. Those materially afflicted will benefit by hearing on of the Supreme Lord and his devotees, that they need not go to any demigod. One simply has to read and understand the history of the life and activities of Prithu Maharaj. It is advised that one read them at least 3 times. Those who are materially afflicted will so benefit by hearing of the Supreme Lord and his devotees, that they need not go to any demigod. The word Suprajatama, surrounded by many children, is very significant in this verse. For one may have many children but may not have any qualified children. Here, however, it is stated Suprajatama, that all the children thus attained would be qualified in education, wealth, beauty, and strength, everything complete. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.23.33 purport.
So it says one should read this Prithu Maharaj's pastimes at least 3 times. Of course, we have been studying Bhagavatam over and over again, so it's more than 3 times. But we are not actually doing this for any material reason. We are doing this because glorifying the Lord and his devotees is spiritual nourishment for us. The more we hear about Prithu Maharaj, the more we hear about the Lord, the more we hear about the activities of the Lord and his devotees, the more we are nourishing our own sadhana bhakti, our sadhana kripa, our bhakti lata beach. So by such activity, we are making progress. And so for a devotee, he really does not do this for a material reason, but also the non-devotees, the fruity workers, they can also benefit by reading Prithu Maharaj's pastimes again and again, and they can get so many material benedictions, wealth, children, kingdom, and what have you. They can get all of these by hearing and reading Prithu Maharaj's pastime. Text 34.
Also, one who hears this narration 3 times will become very reputable if he is not recognized in society, and he will become a great scholar if he is illiterate. In other words, hearing of the narrations of Prithu Maharaj is so auspicious that it drives away all bad luck.
Wow.
This material world is full of dangers at every step, but a devotee has no fear because devotional service is so auspicious that it counteracts all kind of bad luck. As far as education is concerned, one can become recognized in society as a great learned scholar simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, wherein the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees are described. This material world is full of dangers at every step, but a devotee has no fear because devotional service is so auspicious that it automatically counteracts all kinds of bad. Since hearing about Prithu Maharaj is one of the item of the devotional service, Shravanam, naturally hearing about him brings all good fortune.
Thank you. Samasrita ye pada plavam mahat padam punya yasho murare Vava buddhir vasapadam param padam 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 yavipadam nate sham The material world is very dangerous. Every step there is some danger. Now, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, who is called Murari, the danger shrinks into something like the water in the hoof print of a cow. And a devotee can just step over and go back home, back to Godhead. So by hearing Prithu Maharaj's pastimes, one can overcome all dangers and make progress towards the ultimate goal, Krishna consciousness. Text 35.
By hearing the narration of Prithu Maharaj, one can become great, increase his duration of life, gain promotion to the heavenly planets, and counteract the contaminations of this age of Kali. In addition, one can promote the causes of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Therefore, from all sides, it is advisable for a materialistic person who is interested in such things to read and hear the narrations of the life and character of Prithu Maharaj. Whenever we speak of Krishna, we refer to his devotees also, for he is not alone. One is recommended to take to the path of devotional service and hear and chant of Lord Vishnu or of his devotee. This is the sum and substance of all Vedic literatures. Vedescha sarver aham eva vedya. Bhagavad Gita 15.15. The purpose of Vedic knowledge is to understand Krishna and his devotees. Whenever we speak of Krishna, we refer to his devotees also, for he is not alone. He is never Nirvishesha or Shunya, without variety or zero. Krishna is full of variety, and as soon as Krishna is present, there cannot be any question of void. 4.23.35 purport.
Yeah, Krishna is Prema Manduri. Krishna is always surrounded by his loving devotees. Is Venu Manduri, is accustomed to his flute. He is known by his flute music. And he is Rupa Manduri, his beauty is unparalleled. So these are the exceptional qualities of the Lord. Venu Madhuri, Rupa Manduri, Prema Manduri, and which is the last one? Leela Manduri. Yeah, thank you. Leela Manduri. His pastimes are just so sweet. They're so wonderful. So because of these exceptional qualities, Krishna is superior to Lord Narayan. And that is why Lakshmi Devi wants to relish these four special aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, she is not qualified. So Krishna is never alone. He's always surrounded by his loving devotees. Text 36.
If a king who is desirous of attaining victory and ruling power chants the narration of Prithu Maharaj 3 times before going forth on the chariot, all subordinate kings will automatically render all kinds of taxes unto him as they rendered them unto Maharaj Prithu, simply upon his order. Sometimes the subordinate kings rebel, and it was necessary for the emperor to go and chastise them. Since a Kshatriya king naturally desired to rule the world, he wishes to make all other kings subordinate to him. This was also the position of many years ago when Maharaj Prithu was ruling over the earth. At that time, he was the only emperor on this planet. Even 5,000 years ago, Maharaj Yudhishthir and Maharaj Parikshit were the sole emperors of this planet. Sometimes the subordinate kings rebelled, and it was necessary for the emperor to go and chastise them. This process of chanting the narrations of the life and character of Maharaj Prithu is recommended for the conquering kings if they want to fulfill their desire to rule the world.
Thank you. Text 37.
Text 37. Translation: a pure devotee who is executing the different processes of devotional service may be situated in the transcendental position, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, but even he, while discharging devotional service, must hear, read, and induce others to hear about the character and life of Prithu Maharaj. As an ideal king, Prithu Maharaj exhibited all talents in showing how to rule the citizens, how to educate them, and how to develop the state economically. Such a devotee should know by this instruction that the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj are not different from the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An ideal king, Prithu Maharaj exhibited all talents in showing how to rule the citizens, how to educate them, how to develop the state economically, how to fight enemies, how to perform great sacrifices, yagyas, etc. Thus, it is recommended for the Sahija or the neophyte devotee to hear, chant, and get others to hear about the activities of Prithu Maharaj, even though one may think himself to be in the transcendental position of advanced devotional service. 4.23.37 purport.
Thank you. Verse 38.
The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, I have as far as possible spoken the narrations about Prithu Maharaj, which enrich one's devotional attitude. Whoever takes advantage of these benefits also goes back home back to Godhead like Maharaj Prithu. One should not make distinctions between the pastimes of the Lord and the activities of Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj's history of devotional service is as potent as narrations about the activities of Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should not make distinctions between the pastimes of the Lord and the activities of Maharaj Prithu. And whenever it is possible, a devotee should attempt to induce other to hear about Maharaj Prithu. One should not only read of his pastimes for one's own benefit, but should induce others to read and hear about them also. In this way, everyone can be benefited.
Yeah, so we have a responsibility here. Prabhupada is giving us some responsibility here. We should spread the glories of Prithu Maharaj everywhere. We should induce others to hear about Prithu Maharaj. And in this way, we can make their lives perfect. We can make their lives auspicious. Just by hearing about Prithu Maharaj, one life becomes very auspicious. So it's our duty to share this mercy. It's our duty to facilitate others so that they can also benefit from this wonderful benediction that Maitreya Muni is giving us here. The last verse, 39.
Verse 39. Whoever with great reverence and adoration regularly reads, chants, and describes the history of Maharaj Prithu's activities will certainly increase unflinching faith and attraction for the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord's lotus feet are the boat by which one can cross the ocean of nescience. One who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord need not cross over the ocean, for he has already crossed it by virtue of his position at the Lord's lotus feet. The lotus feet of the Lord are known as Mahatpadam. This means that the total source of material existence rests on the lotus feet of the Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. Everything is emanating from him. This cosmic manifestation, which is compared to an ocean of nescience, is also resting on the lotus feet of the Lord. As such, this great ocean of nescience is minimized by a person who is a pure devotee. One who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord need not cross over the ocean, for he has already crossed it by virtue of his position at the Lord's lotus feet. 4.23.39 purport. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 4th canto, 23rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home.
Thank you very much. So we have come to the end of our unit. If there are any questions, they're welcome. If there are no questions, I don't know whether your facilitator will give you the essay topic, I think. So I don't need to give the essay topic.
Yes, Prabhuji, it has been given. Actually,
Okay,
it
great.
has been given the choice to devotees like this.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So any comments or questions?
Prabhuji, I want to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Prabhuji, first of all, I want to pay my respectful obeisances unto your feet and want to thank you so very much for giving us the time. When His Grace Asal Prabhuji said that you are gonna take the sessions, he told me about your divine qualities, that you are extreme humble, and he said that Mataji, when you gonna hear and learn from Prabhuji, then it would be really spiritually uplifting. And from day one, and really, it's a blessing. It's a Srila Prabhupada's blessing. It's His Holiness Bhakti Tir Swami Maharaj's blessing. You are really blessing that we were really able to learn so much, and amazing slides, amazing purpose, that every for every verse you have given the heading. So this is like, sometime if I have to go through and I'm not having the time to read all the things, if I just come read this, yes, I will come to know that what is there. So this is like amazing, and thank you so very much for giving us the time. And I uh, really request you that please, in the coming session also, please, whenever you please get the schedule our little bit, please give us more sessions, and we will be really very thankful. And it's really spiritual affecting. Uh, your association is really so amazing, Prabhuji. Thank you so very much.
Hare
And
Krishna, it's Prabhupada's mercy. It's not
and
my mercy, it's Prabhupada's mercy. Prabhupada has given us the scriptures to study, and we only have to put some time there, dedicate some time to study them, imbibe them, apply them, and share them. That is our responsibility.
yes, and whenever you come to India, Prabhuji, so please let us know. Please, we will really like to serve you here. Thank you so much,
Well,
Prabhuji.
well, I do come to Delhi. I come
Yeah.
to Delhi. I have very good friends in Delhi at the Sri Sri Parthasarthi, Radhas Parthasarthi temple. I have very many friends there. So I always stop over in Delhi, spend a night, 2 or 3, or sometimes a week. So next time we come to Delhi, we'll let you know.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Well, it was nice to meet all of you and see how you are doing your Bhakti Vaibhava studies. So please continue to read these scriptures, study them, apply them to your life, and you will be very, very happy. There is no other way of remaining afloat in this material world of contamination except studying Srila Prabhupada's books and practicing Krishna consciousness, and then sharing it with others. That is the transcendental service, transcendental business Srila Prabhupada has given us. And I always say to the students that the more we study these books, the more we become enlivened. And the best way to study these books is to teach. You may not be a classroom teacher, but you can teach others. You can teach your family members, you can teach your children, you can teach your friends, you can teach any what do you call it? Any audience that is ready to listen to us, receptible audience. We can always speak about Prithu Maharaj, we can speak about Yudhishthira Maharaj, we can speak about Maitreya Muni, Uddhav, and so many other personalities in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And by so doing, we can also become purified. Actually, I enjoy teaching because it pushes me, it forces me to study more and more and more and more. It is my pleasure to teach because it helps me to study Srila Prabhupada's books much more regularly, and it enhances my own spiritual life. So thank you for giving the opportunity to do this seva. I will send the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse where Prabhupada is talking about Rudra, I'll send it to you and you can share with the other students.
Sure,
Okay.
Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can we
Hare-
request you that if we can have your slides also, if it is okay to share?
Yeah, I will share with myself. I always share with students. It is meant for the pleasure of the students, so why not share?
Thank you so much.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
His Grace Srivas Prabhuji ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Looking
Jai.
forward to meeting you again sometime.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so
Hare
much,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Dandavad Pranam.
Jai. Hare Krishna. Jai.